Hi, folks! I'm excited to speak to you all today. These are silly reasons to not make a puzzle game. This is a talk that arose out of the development of Zero Player, a team project for which I designed a bunch of puzzles, a lot of puzzles, I did the 3D art. Zero Player is a static image puzzle game. The entire world is on your screen right now, and to make that possible, we had to stick to a basic set of mechanics that could reasonably be inferred just by looking. So it's all sliding tile puzzles, every puzzle, where you connect wires to transmit power. As development progressed, we began to wonder why we hadn't seen any similar games in the Thinky realm. Nothing identical, of course. We were imagining all the games we could have made if we hadn't constrained ourselves to a static image. Sliding tiles with wires is well-trodden ground in games overall, but rarely are those puzzles aspirational to any significant degree. There was a sinking feeling when we realized what this meant. We weren't exploring unexplored systems. Others had been here, but had turned back silently for reasons unknown. This talk is a catalog of reasons you might turn back from making a puzzle game. I've used all these reasons to justify not making a project at some point in my life. But with time and experience, they've all proven silly. If the creative process is about pruning ideas, by the end of this talk, you'll have less justifications to use when pruning, which means this talk will make your life harder. My apologies. Lucas Pope recently said in an Oberdin modeling time-lapse, "Luckily, I worked on the game long enough. I had the time to come up with something better." My hope with this talk is that developers will give themselves more time to solve problems which are worth solving. So for the first reason, my arrow keys inside my mouse, it's easier. I'm not pursuing these puzzle systems because they're impossible to extract from. For folks unfamiliar, extraction is puzzle hunt terminology for plucking the answer out of a puzzle, put it into an answer checker. When you're making a puzzle for a puzzle hunt, you need to design it in such a way that an answer pops out. Some of the talks earlier talked about this. Typically a word or a series of numbers. Rather frustratingly, most of the world is not about words and numbers, so it's all too easy to make a puzzle that boils down to shuffling symbols around until an answer appears. On a wider scale, game design has this problem where it conflates what a computer is able to evaluate with what a player is able to value. So you'll discover these beautiful systems which communicate your ideas, but they'll seem less worth exploring because you can't make an answer pop out. Now, exploring this territory of unextractable systems can feel like wishy-washy, unfulfilling postmodern territory. I have that phrase written out because I will tumble over it otherwise. Wishy-washy, unfulfilling. But if you have a sense for how much work goes into a large-scale piece of art, then you can use this sense to avoid stopping too soon. You can feel reassured that you're not just being lazy. Opus magnum. It's a simple goal of product in, product out. That's easy to achieve in a nonsense way. Those additional goals in the bottom right were only suggestions, and I didn't follow them. Instead, in the moment to moment, I was guided by my own sense of beauty. In Half-Life Alyx, the most cautious strategies are the most reliable, but the least interesting. There's a potential version of the game where cautious behavior is punished, but be dramatically less fun than what we've got. Players can indeed optimize the fun out of your systems, especially if they're unsure whether or not your game is good. But that doesn't mean those systems aren't worth exploring with full confidence. Next up is a reason that may sound familiar to the pen and paper puzzlers in the audience. I'm not pursuing these puzzle systems. The answers are non-unique, or the solutions that arrive at those answers are non-unique. This reason shows up when you're making puzzles, and there's no way to force the player to do something specific. There's a small set of equally valid solutions. Oftentimes, it's a matter of parity for the very last steps of a solution. If your game is based on tight chains of logic, non-uniqueness problems can be really upsetting. Know this for a fact. Wrong fact. Oftentimes, players can recognize and box up ambiguities they come across, as long as those ambiguities are classifiable and constrained. If uniqueness is important to your game, and the player can't do this boxing up, consider reapproaching the scope of your individual puzzles. It's all too easy to fall for the allure of forward setting, where you place down more and more clues into an empty grid until the solution is unique. Forward setting is great as a designer to explore your own systems. Without careful discretion, The puzzles that result are too large and unfocused to communicate anything clearly. So if you're overscoping your puzzles, don't blame the systems. Next, these puzzle systems don't give the player enough of a challenge. Day to day of making puzzles is making puzzles easier and being proud when you get your points across. Most of my puzzles stop only an inch short of telling the player what to do. Some of these are still difficult puzzles. Lots of beautiful learning, robbed of its beauty, and turned into quizzes, which with all the apparatus a quiz entails. For reference, see primary school. Storyteller is an easy game that explores its design space well. I would not have been convinced of the communicative power of storyteller systems if the game was difficult. Up next, this puzzle game needs a big twist ending. Huge twist ending. I can't figure out what that twist would be. Surprisingly, this line of reasoning usually stems from wanting to quiz the player. It's tempting to want your game to throw players for a loop. It's an exercising of your position of power as a designer. But twists in good games rarely trick the player into thinking one thing and pull the rug. That's gaslighting. It's usually not very fun. Instead, the twist arises from the assumptions a player enters the game with. If you concern yourself with the chain of communication your puzzles live inside, you can begin to assess the priors of your players and design twists accordingly. No musical bird is in reference to a quote from Harry Parch that I'll show shortly. When contemplating a system you'd like to explore in your game, it's easy to forget that your game's existing apparatus isn't the most expressive form of that system. In fact, your apparatus represents a limited palette by which you still miraculously get your points across. Moreover, the apparatus of a sokoban means that it's exceedingly rare to find complementary systems. Exceedingly rare. If you take the apparatus for granted, forget its weight, then the ideas you'd like to explore will lose definition. Here's that Harry Parch quote. Parch was a musician who made his own instruments. Love this dude. Wrote a book called Genesis of a Music. There's a lot of fractions in that book, but it's well worth a read. The book says, the difficulty of notating a vocal line that preserves the integrity of spoken words is not a small one, but neither is it insurmountable, and the compensations are large. Few orthodox musicians would call such vocal lines musical. And Kabaya declares that the songs of birds are not musical either, because they are very difficult to take down notation. Will some divine power please create a musical bird to sing the air for G string in exact equal temperament for M Kabaya? In games, the inflexible notation that we take for granted is the first prototype we make of a game. Sokobans are particularly inflexible because they come with lots of subsystems that all have to be coded at once. Which isn't to say you shouldn't make a sokoban. I love sokobans. I'm a big sokoban fan. I've made sokobans. The tradition of sokobans can make good ideas seem less worthy of exploration. The next up, this game needs words or tutorials, and I was hoping it would be wordless. As artists, we hold a belligerent hope that our art is pure or raw in some way. Reality, of course, art concerns itself with its environment. Its hopeful drive to make something pure gets especially prickly when we're making sokobans, because sokobans feel like pure maths. Actually, they're this tradition with an apparatus we take for granted. Practice, what this means is that we contort our puzzle games to seem more pure than they actually are, and the way we talk to the player feels stifled and unnatural. We are to explore design spaces unhesitatingly. We need to communicate unhesitatingly, which often means flat out telling the player what to do. Here are two games from genres that are typically tutorial free. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers, my favorite games. The kart racer made by fighting game freaks. So good, especially if you're a board game designer in the audience. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers. Wonderful thing to draw from. You've got a ring meter, but it functions way differently than what you'd expect in a kart racer. And, for example, go into debt. Go into too much debt, and you're liable to explode into bits, just like real life, but still counterintuitive. Game needs its tutorials, not just to make the basic mechanics clear, but to make clear the game's reasons for existing. Vivid Lope is an arcade-style game where you run around stepping on tiles to change their color. It's got a lot of PSX charm. And in the tradition of PSX arcade games, Vivid Lope introduces new mechanics through text tutorials. Also got a bestiary where you can spawn in enemies and see text descriptions of their behavior. Ooh. Next, Navigating these systems creates an undo stack that's too futzy to be helpful. Your head is in the right place. You've probably played a lot of difficult sokobans. My good friend Caitlin Delta once quipped that complicated sokobans are designed to reveal the nature of the undo stack. Which is to say, undo stacks add a tremendous amount of overhead. The player needs to keep a running model of every past state of the puzzle. Experientially, playing a puzzle game can feel like rock climbing, where you're hyper aware of your limbs. You're bifurcating up a cliff, and it's stressful. Thankfully, if your game does need an undo stack, there are ways to make it less of a nightmare. In the demo for Trifolium, you click on your own body, navigate to that point in the undo stack. Helpful that you're a worm. You're like a giraffe worm. Really cute, honestly. You could splice in new inputs while leaving the rest of the undo stack intact. I am thrilled that like I see the potential so much in the demo. I'm thrilled for the full game when it comes out. Jack's Sokoban is from 2022. I wish more folks knew about it. It takes a maximalist approach to undo stack management. It visualizes the undo stack, and you could reorder the individual states. Importantly, it implements a rule set isomorphic to Sokoban, which removes the need for a player character. Not having a player character means the undo stack is much tidier. That, as a general rule, if you think about the actions you're taking in the game, so pushing a block, and the intermediate moving around, can be frustrating if you're just undoing through um, the actions you take rather than all those either intermediate steps because you're able to use the undo stack as navigation, but also um again look towards systems that are isomorphic to your idea um because there's a lot of elegant solutions there. So another reason I'm only making this game out of spite. Making art out of spite feels petty and small. Best I can tell, the experience is incredibly common. You're engaging in all with your contemporaries, and your game is something you'd like to see in the world. You'll be frustrated that others didn't do it sooner. Descartes says, I am surprised that among so many rare minds who would have done this much better than I, there was no one who had the patience to unravel these things, and that they almost all imitated those travelers who, leaving the main road to take a crossroad, remain lost in the brambles and precipices. Next reason, I'm afraid that the abundance of edge cases in my system, situations where I have to make a choice for my game, will make the game feel too artificial. Resolving edge cases gracefully is one of the great joys of puzzle game design. Players are interested in how you, as a designer, chose to remedy ambiguous scenarios. Oftentimes, solving an edge case involves making a whole new system for your game. As a player, it's cool to explore the types of thorny systems which require protection against infinite loops, for example. If you're making an earnest attempt at exploring a design space, and you're putting in the effort to let down your veil, these secondary systems won't feel undeserved. You're not ruining the magic. Rivals of Rivals of Aether and other fighting games of its ilk provide a training mode where you can view hitboxes, mess with CPUs, and step through scenarios frame by frame. These are beefed up developer tools. Fighting games are primarily systems of hitboxes and vectors, but normal gameplay happens too fast to internalize these systems with clarity. By letting down the veil, secondary decisions that the developers make feel justified, or at the very least colorful. Next time you I'll go back. Next time you disagree with a design decision, um, it's wonderful to think about it as colorful at the very least. The recontextualization is fun. Analysis paralysis is a phrase that board game designers love, love, love to use when justifying their design decisions. When you're refining your systems, it can feel a lot like tailoring your game to maintain the player's comfort so that they don't get overwhelmed. But often, it's just good old fashioned subtractive design. If your systems are refined enough and the communication clear enough, navigating a busy possibility space can be a lot of fun. So, if you'd like to make a game all about massive possibility spaces, if you're friendly and generous with your visualizations, you don't gotta feel like a burden. I have an anecdote. It's a little bit rude. Um, a board game designer friend of mine uh, was in the early prototype of a game. Brought a prototype to me. Well, we met in Wegmans cafe. Um, and one of the main goals of his game was to make sure that everyone around the table is doing something all the time so that they're not looking at their phones. And that when I started to understand what overly concerned with player discomfort meant, this was a concept that was familiar with me, but the um the idea that there's a difference between what you as a designer are concerned with and what your game is concerned with was a tipping point. So as a designer, honestly, I don't care what you're concerned with. Be concerned with player discomfort. But it's different from what you're putting in the game and what the game is concerned with. This is a tenuous thought, but it's been the most promising and thinking about like, why is analysis paralysis not a good way of thinking about your design decisions a lot of the time. Usually it's just fluff, to be honest. Um, I would say that board game design in general is in that early stage where most design decisions come down to fluff. But finally, one last reason. This game requires the player to have pre-existing trust in the designer. If you're trying to do something new, and you're being honest, generous, and loving, don't worry so much about deserving trust. It can be hard to believe. Sometimes you're doing something, and this is the first time it could ever happen. So the trust you'd ideally want to have is impossible anyways. If you're looking for reasons for your game to exist that live outside your own capacity for care, do not worry. You're plenty enough. Want to see you. um, if you're from the future and you'd like to chat, you can find me at CeriseTalis.com. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much. I absolutely love that. I've got a few questions I'd like to ask you as well, if that's okay.
Of course.
Yeah, awesome. So I was wondering, um, so now that you've come to these conclusions, that
Yes.
these silly reasons to not make a puzzle game, are there
That's it.
games that you didn't make in the past that you are thinking about going back to? Is that something you want to do? And do you have any specific examples?
I do. Actually, this just happened when I was watching Andrew Plotkin's talk.
Okay.
So, I wish I remember the name of the game, but for game jam for a Ludum Dare years ago, I made a incredibly short text adventure game where you were a cult leader who had promised um, your subjects, your cult, that you were going to be sacrificed on a specific day. And you had just woken it was a complete bluff. You had no intention of doing it, but you woke up that day and you're like, dude, I gotta get out of this somehow. And your second in command comes and wants to take you by the arm and say, we're so excited. Oh, we're so excited. Um the game was about struggling for words. Um, how I did this is you have three, um, um, your 3 options usually that you wanna, say to people, but they start out completely blank, but you write in your own, um, way of responding. The, um, text in the background gets sent to YouTube. It looks at the first, like, 3 videos, downloads the captions, and then inserts the words that appear if they appear in the replies, so that you're building up. You're trying to rep what the answers are supposed to be, and my fear with it was that, just it's a blank slate for the player. analysis paralysis. I was afraid of like that it wouldn't say enough about. I didn't understand at the time I made it that how much I was like talking about myself in my games.
Mhm.
And this goes along with requiring pre-existing trust.
Mhm.
Um, and those edge cases. Um, I did not realize how much as a player I wanted to hear the voice of the designer. I look back at some of I made a roll and write board game called DJ Jimmy Shimmy. Um, Going back to that game, um, I did not realize how angry I was when I made it, but I'm really proud of how angry of a game it is for how short it is. You were the world's worst DJ in that game. It's goofy as heck.
Nice. All right, thank you. So I also wanted to ask this question as well. Uh, Sorry, let me just sort this out. Okay, so you talked about silly reasons for not making a puzzle game. What are some good reasons you've had for not making a puzzle game?
Ooh.
Or are there any? Is the moral of this talk that actually maybe there aren't any good reasons for not making a puzzle game?
I think that the moral of this talk is that um yes, there are good reasons for making a puzzle game,
Mhm.
but you need to feel less justified in doing it. You're not
Mm.
slotting art into a bookshelf in the cosmic realm. You're making something for the moment. At the first time it could ever have been made, so you have no prerequisites for what you're doing in some regards. Um, you're never going to be prepared. So, um, but by matter of um wanting to not make a game for these reasons, you're when you start to debunk these things one by one, you come up with a lot of good reasons to make particular games. But I think that the color, the character of games means that your reasons for making a game are usually more precise than what this talk is about.
I love that. Thank you. We've also had a question here from Patrick Trainer. Thank you for all the great
I
questions.
just 100%ed Parabox. I love it so much.
Nice. So Patrick's question is: how do you think about balancing running into these problems and working around them with making a game playable? And sorry, let me say that again, and I'll get the cadence right. How do you think about balancing running into these problems and working around them with making a game playable and approachable?
That's a tough one. Um, I think that wordfulness, um, not not omitting words unnecessarily is a big part of making a game approachable.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go back and talk about ring racers again because I love this game so much. If you talk to my friends, they'll know it.
Mhm.
I talk about this game way too much. Ring racers just got a huge update, um 2.3 to 2.4. Um, and it's like, how do you make um a big part of the update was refinement for the introductory, more casual mode. Um, I think it's understanding the specific frictions. Um, so something that ring racers did for the easiest mode is they made it so that boost items, which you associate with like comeback and um in Mario Kart, for example, you imagine some toddler with a controller in the back of the pack just taking like um a mushroom and sprinting past. They realized that for newer players it was very difficult to maintain control when you're adjusting speed so much, so they nerfed sneakers and such, sneakers being the mushroom equivalent. um if you're trying to this is one of the talks, I believe, from yesterday was talking about being able to skip puzzles. This is in the context of like having multiple puzzles and choosing one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that uh, the specific techniques that you choose for making your game more approachable should um come with the trust you have in players and the new players. Where it's like, okay, I need to reassure myself that players know I'm communicating something. I talked about this on the slide with um Half-Life Alyx, where you don't know as a player, you don't know if a game is good or not, but that's less of a judgment on the game, that's less being picky and more you're just so new um to what they're doing. But if you keep an open dialogue, you let down your veil in the numerous ways that I wish I had more time to talk about. Then I think you can um, find good solutions for letting new players who um, come from all sorts of backgrounds and don't recognize all the subtle prerequisites of your game to approach your game and have a good enriching time.
Great, thank you. Speaking of having more time to talk about things, I'm afraid we got another question from Badman Jones in the chat, but I don't think we have time for it right now. And I think
I
maybe
will.
do you know them? They said also hi, it's Joni or Johnny.
Oh, sorry. Hi from Discord.
um,
DM me
so
or post in the Thinky chat. I will
yeah,
absolutely answer.
exactly. So any additional questions, please take them to the Thinky Games Discord. thinkygames.com/discord is
Yeah.
how to get there. Apologies that I couldn't forward that question on because we don't have time. Also, Patrick said congratulations for 100%ing Patrick's Parabox.
Thank you.
And there were a bunch of people saying your talk was inspirational. So thank you so much.
It's really sweet.
So yeah, we'll move over to the next talk now. Thank you once again, Cerise.
Thank you. Bye.